Hey everyone, I'm Lily, and welcome to my new kind of format for my main, magic content videos. Until now, I should say, I've been kind of doing random little videos here and there, some series that never really caught hold like my DMing and D&D basic series did. And it's been honestly kind of scattered. But I'm decided to shift it more into kind of like a weekly podcast type format that with a bit more of a focus than I have before. For those of you who've been around my channel has this weird middle ground topic where on one hand I do ASMR. If you don't know what that is, look it up. I have a video on my introduction which goes into more of that. And because my main trigger for ASMR that I focus on is explanations, this content side of things. And this podcast is definitely be more on the content side of things. I'll make it sure it's ASMR friendly, no sudden loud noises or anything, but ASMR will not be the main focus of it. So what is this podcast going to be about? And what am I focusing on? And that is something that's really near and dear to me, and that is budget EDH or commander, budget commander. And this pilot episode is kind of talking about what is budget commander and what I want to do with this podcast. And I want to hear your thoughts on it. What do you think about this? The content, is this something people are interested in? This doesn't mean this isn't going to take up all of my magic content, but a lot of my non ASMR focused magic content will be in this format. There's still going to be the ASMR rules readings because people love them for some reason. And other kind of ASMR things like ASMR pack cracking and stuff like that. That's not going away, and there's still going to be other stuff on the other time slots on Tuesday and Friday's video slots. But for now, this is kind of one thing I want to focus on, and I really want to talk a lot about. And yeah, so it's gonna be talking budget EDH. So welcome to Lily's as of yet unnamed budget commander podcast thingamajig, or Lao you could pook Lao yub could Lao yub could Lao yub Lao yub. It rolls right off the tongue. I'll probably end up changing the podcast every episode until I find something I like. Who knows? I'm what they call indecisive. So I'll also figure out actual formatting for it and everything, and do the cheesy names for sections of the podcast and whatnot, but I haven't really thought about that. A few other notes. One, eventually I'll get an actual setup for this, what actually looks nice and whatnot. I am actually going to be putting in a bit more editing work than I normally do for my videos for these, because I want this to be a nice product. I want this to be kind of my premier thing I point to when people ask what I do for my magic content. But yeah, so other thing, I don't have my proper lighting setup because A, it's really hot right now in Seattle and I don't want to be under proper lights, and B, I don't have them right now because my family member is using them for something. So, but they'll be probably back and I'll probably have my proper lighting setup. So this weird lighting that I have is not forever. So yeah, and otherwise, I just want to say thank you to all the standard sellout stuff. Not really sellout, but thank you to all my patrons who help me on Patreon. I normally don't have time for shoutouts in my normal videos because it's more ASMR focused. But thank you so much, everyone who helps support me on Patreon. It really means a lot to me. And yeah, if you want to help support me and the channel itself, you can go visit here at patreon.com/LilyHaran. I should really change to Lily's Library since I changed that. I didn't change all my branding everywhere, but yeah, you can find it there. Lily, insert text here. That's more editing than I normally do, but oh well. So, yeah. Just moving in onto the bulk of the today's episode, and this is kind of talking about budget EDH. And what am I talking about when I'm talking about what is budget EDH? And if you can kind of divide EDH into general categories, the thing is that, well, I should first say EDH or commander if you don't know, is a Magic format that is different in a few ways. One, you start with a 100-card deck. This is just one of mine right here, which you have a special card that's your commander, or, well, in this deck's case, I have two, but, because special stuff, but, and you build kind of your deck around it. So it's a deck that's kind of like built around this one main card that's a legendary creature, and it's 100 cards, unlike a lot of formats, which typically around 60. It is singleton, so you can't have more than one in any given card, and typically it is played multiplayer. And all that combined leads it to have a very versatile format with a lot of ways to play it. There's its ban list is relatively small, especially for being a eternal format. So every set except for silver border sets are allowed, and even then a lot of play groups will allow silver borders. There's a lot of flexibility depending on your play group and whatnot. And because of the large variety of options, it is probably the format besides casual play, which is kitchen table Magic, which has the most variance in both power level, deck design, brewing, and all that. And it's really a cool format that I love. It's one of the most widely played formats where it's not everyone plays modern or standard or something, but you'll find that's honestly it's kind of hard to find people at least a few people at any given event that don't play Commander and have a deck to sit down and play a deck with. That's really kind of this common format that's really cool, and I love it so much. It's my favorite constructed format. But one thing I mentioned on is there's a lot of levels of competitiveness, everywhere from the normal level, which is people who want to invest in the game, who are good and want to tweak it. There is kind of the very high-end competitive edge where people are doing things turn one stifling your fetch lands and tutoring up potencies and then running off Doomsday and comboing off turn 3. But typically that's not really the standard, and not really going to come into the discussion of this podcast at all because it's so far away. And more we're shifting into kind of this, what's the difference between normal Commander and what I'm kind of focusing on, which is budget Commander, or more casual Commander. I mean, Commander's already kind of a casual format, but this podcast is going to be focusing on the casual. I'm talking about building Commander decks on I don't want to put a number value, but it's decks that honestly aren't above $50 or at most $100, and that's kind of what I'm focusing on. I'll go into that a little bit later, but yeah, so it's gonna be focusing on the lower price end, a bit more flexibility and things like that. So the thing that this podcast is going to be focusing on is brewing in this environment, brewing without having to spend a lot of money, because there's the elephant in the room of if you are new to the game, if you are new to Commander or new to Magic at all, it's there's the elephant room, and there's a really easy way to get in Commander, and that is the precons. Every year, and there's actually some coming out soon for Commander 2018, Wizards put out these precons for Commander, which honestly end up being really good decks and really good ways to get into the format. And honestly, the easiest way for I to tell you to say, hey, I want to get into budget Commander is pick a precon. But the amount of discussion on that is kind of limited. There's strategy, of course, and I'll definitely be talking about the precons when they come out and when spoiler season begins in next week. But it isn't, what I'm focusing on is brewing, and I'll probably definitely have episodes talking about here's what you can take from this, the precon and what you can brew around this. Precons are really good even if you don't want to run the precon though, because you can take it apart, and usually they come with a lot of good staples for those colors that they're in, and there's a lot of things you can go with. So I'll be definitely talking about those later, but the focus is definitely going to be on brewing your own decks and building your own decks, because one thing I love about EDH and love about Magic as a whole, but especially EDH, is the ability to have deck building as a form of self-expression and kind of like artistry of building decks. And Commander being like eternal format, so everything's illegal. There's lots of variants, and one thing I'll get into later also is that the power level, there's not as much of a pressure to be like top tier competitive, because the multiplayer aspect kind of in some ways like is self-balancing, because a very powerful deck and a very powerful player is a clear threat, and then there's the political disadvantage against them. So it's self-balancing in a way. That said, for casual Commander, typically you do kind of want like a play group that is like kind of like brewing around the same power level. But as long as you're not sitting down at competitive EDH tables, you're probably going to be pretty off, given what I'm talking about, where a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about and a lot of the advice I'll be talking about is like best suited for like groups that are kind of doing the same thing, like in terms of like mentality and playstyle, not playstyle, but like not, and also not budget, because budget's one of those interesting things where it's like the price of a deck doesn't necessarily reflect its power, but that's something else to talk about later. But I do want the advice to be applicable to pretty much like if you just want, like if your local game store has a Commander night, like to be able to take one of like the decks and using like the advice I'm going for and like building a deck on a budget and stuff like that, and still having it be fairly competitive. Like there's some like channels and stuff that do like budget like EDH deck techs and stuff, and I might be using some of those, but the focus isn't going to be on like, here's this fun deck I built, like here you can build and take it there. I'd rather focus on giving you the tools to build your own from there, to have that deck building as self-expression and really making something that really speaks to you and speaks to your own what you want, and almost like working within a budget and doing those things really almost helps drive that. Because sure, it's like when you're like, say you're sitting down and building like an Orzhov deck, it's like obviously it's like if you're going bone of budget, like obviously you're getting you probably have a good like fifth or more of your deck like just filled out by like the optimal staples. And that's kind of true for almost any color combo. But like with a budget, you have to like start like doing like making like compromises and figuring out like alternatives. And once you go like a few steps down like the price range, the amount of options that open up are like very wide and allows really cool and intricate games. That said, Commander is also known as one of those formats where almost any card can find a use. Like obviously there is there's a point where things are just not good enough. Like vanilla creatures probably not going to be running, but like corner case rares, like bulk rares and things like that, they find their home in Commander. And there's a lot of really cool things, a lot of cool interactions that aren't even discovered for it. And when you're really looking deep and trying to find like the cool things that are like aren't necessarily the well-trodden paths which raise prices, you can help find. And that's really what's exciting about me for Commander, and kind of sharing those things. There's a few things, like another thing I'm going to talk about on the podcast is the variance in strategy between normal Commander and like the changes that having like a budget group changes to your like strategy and whatnot. Like for example, budget Commander, when you get lower, is much more determined in the combat step. When you get to like more competitive groups, it's all about like kind of like comboing off and doing other like cool like synergies and value like stuff where you're getting out wins out of nowhere or and these very like powerful magic like plays. Whereas when you like lower down like the price range and the power level, the game really becomes much more determined in the combat step. It's all about the red zone and attacking. It's very creature based and more slow grindy value. I'm not saying there isn't combos and things like that can go infinite and help you win out the right way, but it's gonna be a lot more like value based than just purely kind of that, which just change it. Like honestly, in more of a budget playgroup, you probably want to be running more rafts. You probably want to be running, you probably could go away with using less spot removal because there's less like threats that need to be answered. That said, budget also doesn't necessarily reflect power, so will always be adjusting for your meta as needed. But I know my personal meta, my play groups that I play with, like, they are very, like, we are kind of a budget play group, and it's a very creature heavy thing. Like, there's like 4 different token decks that people bring to the table, and all these other things, which really inform, like, kind of like change, like, I wouldn't normally sit down to, like, with a deck at, like, a local game store with some of the decks I bring, because it's just, like, I'm answering very different threats at different places. So, and this podcast will kind of, like, talk about, go into depth about, like, what those things will be going to, and those differences, and how that can change how you approach things, how you do those sort of things. So, I'll also do discussions on, like, how to do a, like, find a play group and put together a play group for, like, budget commander, and, like, not, like, lay down the rules, but, like, come to a common understanding about, like, what you want to do, and, like, kind of, like, because commander, like, there is one thing where it's there's really no hard line when it, like, stops being budget, like, casual commander to normal commander to competitive commander. Although the line between, like, normal, like average commander and competitive commander is a bit more clear, because then it's like, when you start running Doomsday and Necropotence and Force Spike, then you've kind of crossed into, like, yeah, you might be playing competitive commander. You can't just say, like, oh, no budget, because part of competitive command or casual commander is, like, kind of like building from your collection and what you have. Like, oh, we don't want to have over $100, but then it's like, oh, but, like, I opened this, like, doubling season from, like, a Battle Pawn draft I did a few weeks ago, and can I not run that in my group now? Because it's like, having, like, some like powerful cards is really cool, and building from your collection is really a focus that I want to do, and kind of, like, be able to look at what you have and bring it there. That I'll have some discussion about, like, how to find that commonality, and how to have those discussions about, like, when, like, talk about, like, oh, if there's, like, a deck that's, like, really degenerate in your play group and things like that, because that can happen if everyone else doesn't really necessarily have, like, the budget or, like, the spending money to be kitting out their kits, and I'll talk about, like, the stuff needed there. It honestly won't be dissimilar to my videos on, like, putting together D&D groups and whatnot. I mean, it'll be a lot about my D&D series where I'll be just yelling at you to you need to communicate better, because that's how you get by with other people, is you communicate with them. That's just general life advice. Work on your communication. I think everyone could. But yeah, so I was talking about, like, that. Honestly, it's actually not that dissimilar to, like, putting together a D&D group, because with, like, budget commander and stuff, like sure, it's, like, probably not, like, the first game of Magic you want to sit down, but it honestly is a fun way to get people into Magic and get into the game, whereas, like, D&D groups, it's, like, a lot of the time a bulkier group, like, will be getting them into D&D. So it's kind of like a good entry-level format, because it's, like, they get to do cool things. You could be like, okay, let's choose, like, a cool creature and help them build around this deck and things like that, and invite them in, like, and kind of, like, build from there and slowly build out. Like, this podcast is, like, for new players, like, who, like, necessarily don't want to, like, invest a lot of money in the game. People who, like, just don't have a lot of money to invest in the game, or don't want to, like, heavily invest in the game. People like me who, like, I invested a fair amount in the game, but, like, I like having lots of decks, and I can't afford to, like, kit all of them out with, like, optimal mana bases and all that. It's just, like, that wouldn't be practical for me. But I like having, like, 20 different decks and, like, swapping out and figure out things, like, and that's something I like to do. And just, like, a lot wide audience. Also for, like, even people who are more used to playing normal games and want some help, like, building, like, some powered down decks. Honestly, I think it's harder for players who are, it's harder for players that are good at the game to build less optimal decks than it is people who, like, are still learning the game to power up their decks. And sometimes you do want to power down your decks if you're, like, in a play group where you're too powerful and, like, it's kind of, like, making the game kind of unfun for other people, and you want to, like, get onto that like even the playing field a little bit, and I'll definitely touch on that a little bit. So there's like a large range of audiences that like kind of like this common topic that I want to be talking about. So when I'm talking about decks and like talking about brewing and stuff, like the priorities I want to be focusing on for this are a few things. One is definitely budget, and this is talking about like both building from your collection, building from what you already have, or mostly building from stuff that is like pretty cheap. Typically my thing is that like apart from a few staples, like when I get a new deck, like sure I'll pick up like a Soul Ring and a Command Tower, and I'll like spend a little bit of money on that. But even then, if I'm picking up singles, unless it's like a really linchpin piece of the deck, I honestly don't like spending more than like 25 to 50 cents on a card. And like I usually just like go up to Mox Boarding House. I'm not sponsored. That's what I do. Although if you wanted to sponsor me, yeah, no, but that's what I do. I just go up there and like I have a list of things I want to pick up, and then I spend like I don't know, $5, $10 to like fill out a deck and get up the stuff I need that I didn't have in my collection. Or like building stuff from like things like, and then filling out the rest from things like drafts and other events and stuff, and kind of like that's kind of want to focus on is like how like pointing out like cards. Like I'll probably do episodes on talking about like here's like really like let's point out like let's just talk about removal and board wipes and what are like the good budget options for these and things to look into. But the next part of that is that like we're starting with this like base layer. One thing I'll talk a lot about is just like building a base layer of a deck, like having cards that are like kind of just like placeholders and things like that. But then also talking about like the incremental improvement and evolution of the decks, where one thing that's really cool about Commander is like the thing that I do is like coming home from like a pre-release and like getting all these new cards and like figuring out like what I want to slot into new decks, and that incremental progression is something that's really cool and something I really enjoy, where it's like you get to take out some of the like the more, as you get like you trade for cool new cards that are like more powerful, and like so you're replacing some of like the more budget stuff and like improving them that way. And that's another thing I'm going to be focusing on, is like talking about how to do this. How do you want to approach like upgrading your decks and things like that. And finally, just like a priority for like brewing deck construction is just kind of like just fun and having like fun playing your decks, because kind of like my approach for like budget Commander is that like when I'm building my decks, like obviously I have like a win con in mind and I want to like win the game obviously, but it's when I build my decks I kind of like I want my deck to do this cool thing and I build my deck there. Like, I'm not trying to, like, win at any cost of the deck brewing style. I just want to build a fun deck. Obviously, when I sit down to, like, at the table, yeah, I'm trying to win. I mean, I'm definitely going to be focusing on, like, non-degenerate, like, making it fun for the whole table, and making it really a good, like, community experience. Like, this podcast, obviously you're trying to win. Like, I'm giving you like advice and strategy. I'm gonna help you try to win these games that you're playing. But it's not gonna be entirely like spike centric, where it's not win at any cost. It's to have fun as a group. Like, the fun of Commander honestly isn't the winning and like have like thing. The fun of Commander is like playing this shared group as a game and like building decks that interact and are fun to play with and against, and kind of like help fostering like a very good like and healthy play group. It's like, sure, you might have fun playing like a super degenerate stacks deck, but it's like you may not have a play group to play it with, and then that's no fun. So definitely fun is going to be a thing, and of course it's very subjective and different play groups like enjoy different things, but when you're talking about like that sort of things, where it's like some groups like don't like doing like 3-card infinite or 2-card infinite combos, and things like that. Other groups like don't like heavy like just like prison type strategies and things like that, and finding what your group is there and like brewing with kind of like brewing friendly fair decks in mind. That said, with budget Commander, one saving grace is that it is kind of harder to build like truly unfair decks. So that's about it for like the bulk or like the main meat of the podcast. As for the target length of these, I'm not really sure what I'm going to be aiming for. It'll probably depend on the topic itself. So, yeah. But yeah, no, so there's one more thing. There's a few more things I want to do before we wrap up entirely. But, yeah. One part I want to do at the end, because I mentioned this before, where it's like, in Commander is the format where like almost anything is played, and especially like budget Commander where it's like, you can find like a thing there. So an important part of that is going to be card analysis, and part of that is kind of like being able to look at a card and see like how bad is too bad for a budget Commander. So the end of episode, I'm just going to do like just a quick crack pack, and kind of like go through the cards and tell my thoughts about like, is this playable in Commander, and kind of like my thought process for that, or like, is it playable in certain conditions where it's like, where every card might find a slot, it doesn't necessarily mean it has a place in every deck. There just might be a Commander out there that wants it. Where it's like, my Shu Yun deck, which just cares about all these like, essentially draft, like combat tricks, like all of a sudden like, those are very good in that deck. Like you wouldn't be running Run Amok, or from Dominaria in like a Commander deck, but it works great in Shu Yun. So keep in mind, like, some of these, like, even the ones I said, like, aren't probably good in Commander, there actually might be a Commander where it's worth running. So, yeah. I just have a pack of Core 19 here. And, we will just jump right into it. Alright, so first up we got a cancel, it's just 1 blue for counter target spell. Counter spells are interesting for budget Commander, where obviously if you're playing very much like that, a control-y type deck, it's not bad. That said, cancel's one of those cards where it's like the vanilla option for a counter spell. Things like Dissipate are already pretty cheap, and typically I want my counter spells to be doing a little bit more. And there's honestly better ones that are cheap. There's like Summary Dismissal and other cards like that that like do more and have a bit more oomph in a Commander game than just a straight cancel. So I'm not huge on cancel, although if you're playing something like Baral or something, you're a monster, but you're there. Next up is Sure Strike, which is 1 and a red for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. I was just talking about like how like some combat tricks are like good in like Shu Yun, which is like where most of the combat tricks are good. But generally combat tricks aren't good in Commander, and this is no exception. I don't even run this in Shu Yun. So not great on Sure Strike. Next up is Revitalize, which is 1 and a white for an instant. You gain 3 life, draw a card. Again, like, not great. It does cantrip itself, which is fine, and often, like, if you don't have a 2-drop slot, it'll go through. Like, it doesn't do enough. It doesn't do that much. Also, when I'm doing these, I might, like, talk about, like, scaffolding cards, which are, like, kind of cards that are meant to be placeholders that, like, kind of do themselves. Like, a lot of cantrips that, like, have to do with your deck will, like, go into that scaffolding slot. And this one is definitely one of those scaffolding cards. Like, if you're playing, like, a life gain deck, you could put this in there if, like, you just need to fill out something before you, like, replace it with something else. But this would be a pretty high, like, replace, and typically, if you can, you don't want to be running scaffolding cards. But it's like, sometimes you need to run them, because sometimes you don't have a chance to run to the game store, or you can't find the card you actually want to put in. I'll talk about, like, proxying later as, like, a playgroup policy and stuff like that. And, like, kind of, like, things like that, but that's not really going to be something I'm going to be talking about for this right now. Next up is Uncomfortable Chill, which is 2 and a blue for an instant. Creatures your opponent controls get -2/-0 until end of turn. Draw a card. We're just getting tons of, like, combat tricks and cantrips. Again, this isn't great. Like, at 3 mana, like, sure it cantrips, but 3 mana is, like, a non-insignificant amount of mana. Honestly, the kind of creatures that could be throwing at you, like, this might be useful against a tokens deck, but that's about it. Like, and otherwise it's just, like, a fog that cycles itself, so not high on Uncomfortable Chill. Next up is Two-Headed Zombie, which is 3 and a black for a zombie with menace. It's a 4/2. again, this is a creature, but it's a French vanilla creature with menace. Like, some French vanilla creatures are fine. French vanilla meaning it has stats and a keyword ability. Menace is not one of those keyword abilities I think are useful. There are a few keyword abilities, namely Death Touchers, which I really like in Budget Commander, but this is not one of them. It just does not do anything, and it does not impact the board that much. Next up is Rock's Oracle, which is 4 and a green for a 4/2 Rhino Monk. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Now this is one where, like, I think it is still a scaffolding card because there's better, like, things that, like, cycle themselves, like Elvish Visionaries and whatnot. But I think it's fine as a scaffolding card, as like kind of like any generic creature green deck. But it's not great. But again, like, that's like getting there on like the common creature route. Like I said, M19, because it is a core set, will have has a lot more simpler things. So there's gonna be a lot less stuff outside of like the rare slot, which will be like super useful for us in this. And next up is Colossal Dreadmaw, which is another French vanilla creature. It has Trample, which is slightly better than Menace, but it's not gonna be doing you much good. Commander, you start at 40 life. A 6/6 isn't doing that. And it just isn't getting you there. Next up is a Marauder's Axe, which is a 2-mana equipment with equip 2 to give +2/+0. I mean, yes, scaffolding in like an equipment deck, but otherwise you're really not looking to play something like this. It just doesn't do enough. And there's better equipment on the cheap that you can get for this. Cavalry Joel Master. It's a 2-mana 2/1 that when it enters battlefield, triggers +2/+0 against first strike until end of turn. Again, this is little better than a French vanilla creature, so you're not going to be running it. Shock, which is, it's a 1-mana instant that deals 2 damage to any target. Now we come to our first like removal spell. When it comes to removal spells, the red ones I find are the worst, because damage-based ones, it's like a lot, like, Shock will hit a lot of important things. Like, there are a lot of, like, small creatures that like, utility creatures that pose problems in Commander and things like that. But Shock is just so narrow. Lightning Bolt, like, is starting to get there because it just, that kills so much more stuff. And Lightning Bolt also has, like, utility against Planeswalkers and things like that. Shock just isn't killing enough that I really want to be running it. Like, I could see it as, like, scaffolding in a, like, Spellslinger type deck, but not that great. Next up is Inferno Hellion, which is a 4-mana 7/3 trample that at the beginning of each instep, if it attacked or blocked this turn, its owner shuffles it into their library. I mean, it attacks in for 7, and then you don't get it anymore. This isn't something you really want to be running. Like, there's no good, reliable way to abuse its shuffle effect, so it isn't really something you want to be running. Okay. Millstone, which is a 2-mana artifact for 2, and tap it, and top player puts top 2 cards of their library into their graveyards. So, mill decks are one of these interesting things where I actually think they're a lot more viable in kind of like Budget Commander, because people are going to be running less like Eldrazi and Blightsteel Colossuses and other things that shuffle their library. That said, Millstone, if it required like 2 mana every turn to keep going, I think would be more viable. And quite actually decent at that point. But the thing is that like a lot of the mill commanders, be it Phoenix or Una or things like that, usually are milling stuff better themselves. You probably just want to have more cards that enable them rather than running things like Millstone. That said, it could be used as scaffolding for those things, and especially but alternatively on the flip side, if you're playing something that you want to be milling yourself, it's okay again. That said, for self-mill, there are better cards that like self-mill you every turn. Like, there's the Curse that like mills every turn, that for both the mill deck and this one, that like mills for 1 mana more, but it doesn't require like mana upkeep every turn. So Millstone is, as iconic as it is, probably not the best place for it. Next up is Poison Tip Archer. This is a 2 black and a green for a creature, elf archer, with 2/3 with reach and death touch. And whenever another creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. I'm glad we opened this, because this is an excellent card. United for budget, like this is just like a decent card. Obviously, it's great in any like aristocrats thing where you're like sacrificing your creature or like killing a lot of their creatures. You can like start draining your opponent's stuff. Like I said, this is a very much like budget commander becomes like is a much more creature like combat based thing, and this can help disincentivize board wipes against you if you're a very creature heavy deck, or help give some oomph to your board wipes if you need to wipe the board and it's on board. Because like if there's like 10 creatures on the board, like you board wipe and you drain everyone for 10, which like is a significant thing. It's just kind of like an extra, like obviously isn't quite as powerful as like Falcon Wrath Noble or Blood Artist. But that said, also having Death Touch and Reach is super nice. I mean, Reach is like nice with Death Touch, like Reach on its own isn't that interesting. But Death Touch is nice because not only does it like block very well, and it disincentivizes blocks, but it's politically, it makes people attack other people other than you. So not only are you protecting yourself, you're also like deflecting stuff onto other people. Because like obviously like this one I think is actually not as good as a Death Toucher, because like people wouldn't mind trading with this because he's a dangerous card. But that said, yeah, no, I think this is an excellent card, even outside of like budget commander. Like any creature-based strategy or any like aristocrats-based strategy, he's gonna be like, is quite happy with that. Next up we have Chaos Wand. It's a rare, which is a 3-mana artifact. You may pay 4 and tap it to have target opponent exile cards from the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then put the exiled cards that weren't cast this way on the bottom of the library in a random order. Honestly, I think this is really cool in Commander, and it almost kind of slots into almost any sort of deck. But for 4 mana, essentially getting to like cast a spell for free. It gives you like card advantage because you don't have to give the spell. That's it is random. But think about like what are the most common types of instant sorceries that people are to be running in Commander. Usually card draw, removal, and board wipes. Usually things that you kind of want, and you don't have to cast the spell, so you get to like choose if you don't want to cast the spell. So I could see it really being like a good like inclusion in a lot of decks, because Commander is a slow format, and kind of like the lack of like combo kills out of nowhere. There's a lot of budget decks like budget Commander like kind of like have very like slow games, and you have time to like activate this. Like this is iffy and limited because it's like, oh, you might like hit combat tricks that you don't really want to hit. That's like kind of not useful. But that said, like this hits all stuff you want to get. And yeah, like obviously if there's like a deck that's like a Spellslinger deck that has like less valuable instant sorceries, maybe don't hit them with the deck. Maybe hit the person like if you need a board wipe, hit like the Orzhov player who's like doing all their other stuff. But I really do like Chaos Wand. You know, definitely I'm slotting, I already have one, and I just recently slotted into my Vial Smasher deck, so that's very cool. And finally for a land, we got like a nice dual land, which is Foul Orchard, which is just a tap land that enters for black-green, and a nice Thopter token. I miss Kaladesh Limited. But speaking of the dual land, that's actually a few videos I want to do like relatively soon, which is talking about budget mana bases, and kind of like talking about like what I might approach, like here's how to build a 5-color mana base for under $10. Here's how to upgrade it to get like for about $30, and like here's how to like eventually strive for your optimal mana base. Because like a lot of videos that talk about these things, like here's the optimal and here's like some footnotes about like budget options, but that guide will be very much focused on like here is the budget mana base, and here's directly how you want to upgrade it and how you incrementally want to do it, and also how you want to change how you construct the deck to like appropriately like adjust for having that budget mana base. So yeah. Well, that ends the crack-a-pack portion. Yeah, no. So M19, probably not, like, a lot of the commons and uncommons aren't going to be a lot. I do have some other stuff, like, Dominaria has a lot more interesting stuff. I'm probably not going to be doing a lot of crack-a-packs from M19, to be fair, because just there isn't that much from it. At this point, I might do a, like, kind of, like, quick, like, set review and, like, touch on the things I think are great in M19 for Limited, but I might, probably not going to go super in-depth on that. I'm not sure if I have time, though. Maybe. But, yeah. So I'll probably, like, do, like, Dominaria and have, like, some other stuff up there still, so. Yeah. So, now just for the last part, like, I just want to ask you all guys, like, what do you want to see from this podcast? Like, what do you think? Like, is this format something you'd want to see more of? Do you have any show name ideas? Because I'm at a loss. I thought, like, because, like, when I was thinking of, like, the Sylvan Library, like, doing, like, the name it after a magic card, and, like, I'm Lily's Library, the podcast is called the Sylvan Library, but also the Sylvan Library is aggressively not a budget magic card, because it's, like, $8 or something, which, I mean, isn't a lot, but, it isn't what I consider to be a budget magic card. So I was like, maybe not that. I was thinking of, like, the Shimmering Grotto, because I love that card. That's, like, it was, like, a thing that you really wouldn't run out of budget magic, but I'm not sure, but I'll figure something out. Yeah, and also let me know if, like, any topics you want to hear about, any questions you have, and I'll definitely get back to you. And, well, I hope you enjoyed this, like, first kind of, like, test out pilot episode, and, yeah, let me know what you think, and, thanks for listening. Eventually I'll probably just have it on my YouTube channel for a little bit. I might figure out, like, where to put it, like, on actual, like, podcast places, and I'll probably, like, then go back and, like, post any episodes I've done, but I'm gonna be focusing on, like, YouTube while I get, like, the hang of it right now. So, yeah, well, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and may your story smile upon you. Alright, see ya.